Yes.
Okay. So let me see here real quick. Oh, I gotta come this way. Where's the mouse? Over there.
Yeah, so you just want to,
Yeah.
now you're just in the presentation.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Okay. I'm live.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Kelsey has just let me know I'm live. So here's the amazing thing. I don't know how many people are on here. I'm not the technological wizard. Kelsey here's the technological wizard. So I wanted to visit with you a little bit. When Christy asked me to do this training, I'm already a member of the Resilient Realtor. I'm part of the Big Helper team. I'm Terry Cottle. Just want to introduce myself. My wife and Christy are cousins. Long time ago, they invited me to join them in real estate. I said heck no. Later, things that took place brought me to Arizona, and I joined their real estate team. The biggest thing with the resilient realtor is becoming an unstoppable agent. Now, remember, there's only one agent that can stop us, and that's ourselves. So we want to make sure that we're resilient. We got to change our mindset and start working to becoming that resilient agent. Um, Being a member of the Big Helper team, I've been a member of the team for about 6 years. Um, let's go to the next slide. Meet the team. I'm the guy right there in the green shirt that's going like this. So on there, I talk with my hands. I'm always moving my hands. But the best part about being part of the Big Helper team is when they say they're family oriented, they really, really are. They brought me on. They helped me get started. They helped me through the process. They taught me everything I know about in real estate. And when it comes to open houses and the things that we're covering today, I wanted to talk to you a lot about some of the stuff that Meryl and I did together as we were doing open houses. So you're going to hear from a ton of agents. Open houses don't work. They're no good. That doesn't bring in business. Don't do it. Don't listen to them. That's the first thing you gotta remember. Don't listen to the naysayers. They're going to tell you phone calling doesn't work. They're going to tell you it's not important to have a CRM. It's not important to do open houses. It's not important to do all these things. Don't listen to them. The biggest thing is there's agents who do these things and it works. I want to tell you a quick story about an open house. Merrill set a goal to do an open house. It was 2016 February. He was going to do an open house every day that month, except Saturday and Sunday, except Sundays. He was going to take Sundays off from doing open houses. Well, I said, hey, I'll join you and we'll do those. So it was day 3 on a Wednesday, a weekday. And we had the only time we had available for an open house was in the morning. It was like from 10 to 1. And it wasn't the best time. People are working, all those different things. It was day 3. I was at the open house. All of a sudden, someone called Merrill. He had to take off. I was sitting at this open house, and it wasn't the most ideal open house. It wasn't in a packed neighborhood. It was on Chandler Heights, and we were sitting right there. Merrill left. I was doing some work. 4 people came in the entire open house. So this is day 3 of doing an open house every day. Day 3, a gentleman walks in. We write an offer. We get that home under contract. Not many people have sold the home that they were sitting in, but it works. That home we sold, and at that point, it was the biggest contract of my career, which was about a year at that point. Another really cool story. I met a gentleman. I was in the business probably 4 months. I was doing an open house by myself. I had set up 20 signs, set up all these signs. This guy pulled up next door. There was 2 homes for sale. And he said, hey, you set up a ton of signs. I'm only setting up 1. So he set up his 1 sign. I went in, did my open house. We were packing up at the same time. I walked out and I said, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? How long have you been in real estate? 20 years. How do you find your clients? Oh, I only do open houses. This is a guy who'd been in business for 20 years and he only does open houses. And so I talked to him about that. And the key he told me about is a lot of people get leads from open houses, but a lot of people don't call those leads they get from open houses. The biggest thing is when you get an open house lead is to read it, to do it, use it correctly. So in this training, there's going to be so much information about open houses and doing those things. What I want you guys to remember that consistency beats perfect inconsistency. So when you're doing your open houses and you're working these things, just doing the open houses over and over and over again is going to bring success. That's what breeds success. It's not perfection. So you have to remember, if you only hold one open house a year and it's the perfect open house, that is never going to beat someone who's holding an open house every week and doing those things. So remember those things. So next thing we're going to talk about is everything we talk about here is going to be on the Big Helper training site. It's going to be on Big Help. You can learn about the team, bighelpergroup.com. The next thing we're going to be talking about is prep and planning. So remember, it's super important to plan your open house. When am I going to do my open house? Do you want this on a weekday or a weekend? It all depends on where you are. If you're in a retirement community, it's okay to do all the open houses you want to on the weekdays. Here's the big thing though. That open house that I did, that we sold that property, was on a weekday. So if the only day you have to hold that house open is the weekday, do it. The time of day, that also matters. But the that house I sold was on the wrong time of day, in my opinion. And so the time of day that you do the open house, are you going to try to catch everyone who's heading home? There's so many things you got to do. What type of listing do you want to hold open? Is it your listing? Is it your team's listing? Is it not your company's listing? If it's your listing, it's really easy. You can talk to your sellers and get approval. If it's someone else's in your company, it's really easy to do. When it's not your company's listing, it gets a little bit harder. But we'll talk about some tips for holding that. So one of the biggest things to look up in my experience, one of the biggest things to do is look up agent owner. If you look up agent owner properties, they don't care any rules. They don't care about any rules. They want that home sold right away. And so they're going to let you hold that home open. When a lot of times when you just look up other companies and you just start picking, those homes are a little bit harder for the agent to let you in there, because they're going to let you know, hey, my brokerage doesn't want me to let any other agents hold it open, when the owner agents are just going to say, hold it open. Vacant properties, we need to remember a couple things about those vacant properties. We've got to remember some things. We need the soap. We need, the most important thing to remember is TP, and the utilities are on. Now TP means toilet paper, because you're going to get in there, someone's going to come in and say, okay, if we use the bathroom, it's a vacant. They're not going to have any. Make sure you have those things there. Plan your open house. Pick, if it's not your listing, location is paramount. You need to make sure you're ready and you understand where in the neighborhood and how many signs you're going to need. Because if you're right off a main entrance, you're going to be, oh, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 signs. I need this. So start planning that location in the beginning. The next thing is, what are you going to bring to the open house? Have an open house kit. So our team, they were amazing. They got us these crates and everything and started getting stuff ready for open houses. We had hand sanitizer, some soap, a roll of toilet paper when it came. Kelsey put those together and all these different things. I still have that crate. I've got all my open houses and stuff in there. I've got my tablecloth. I've got some clipboards. I've got a ton of these sheets that I use right here. This is what I use for when clients come to the house. I don't hand it to them to fill out. I'm more comfortable if I'm having a conversation with them and I'm filling out the information. As we go through the house, we find out what they like. That's my lead sheet. I have a couple pins, because if I only bring one, it's going to die. Your open house flyers, your switch properties. I'll talk about the switch properties a little bit more on the next slide. But it's really, really important you're planning and you're prepping this open house. There's so many details to go over. One of the things that I do as I'm going through and I'm analyzing the comps, what I do like a quick and dirty CMA for each open house that I'm going to do. And what I mean by that is I go through the whole neighborhood. It doesn't matter which property I'm doing, whether it's a single story, 1,300 square foot, or if it's a 4,000 square foot, 2-story home with a pool and all this stuff. What I'll do is I'll grab the entire neighborhood and I will get all the 2-story homes. And then I'll do a statistical buyer CMA. I get to see what all those 2-story homes are doing, everything that's closed in the last year. Then I'll say, okay, that's the 2-story homes. Then I'll do the larger set of single-story homes. And then I'll do the smaller set of single-story homes. So I get a quick and dirty idea of what's going on in the neighborhood. What have the values been doing? How are they comparing to each other? And then what I do in each one of those, as I'm looking it up, I turn the pool on and off. So I can see how much is a pool worth in this neighborhood. Because what's crazy, in Mesa, pools give you about $15,000. In Santan Valley, pools give you about $25,000 in value. And you don't see that until you turn on and off those filters in different neighborhoods. Because in Mesa and Gilbert and Chandler, the things about pools, what's amazing about that is you could finance a pool in on the more expensive homes. So there's so many more pools in those areas. Where in Santan, if you're buying in the lower area, most people couldn't finance a pool in. And so there's so many less pools. In Santan, the pools are worth more. And that's just, you learn that by doing those quick and dirty CMAs in each one of those neighborhoods. Door knocking around open houses are the easiest thing ever. I got to share this experience with you. I went door knocking around an open house, and this gentleman comes out just yelling and screaming at me about how this neighborhood, there's a sign that there's no soliciting. And I said, hey, sir, I just wanted to let you know I have an open house right over here, and I'm letting everybody know I'm directing traffic in here. If you've got kids, I want you to know that traffic's there. He instantly is not mad at me anymore. And he goes, by the way, they have kids, they have kids, they have kids, they have kids. They have 4 kids, and most of them are under 10, so you really need to talk to them. Custom tailor my message to each one of those family homes. So have something in place as you're door knocking. And so really, that's knocking around open houses, I'm letting them know, hey, we're about to have an open house tomorrow, and I'm directing traffic to this street. So I want to have kids that you're keeping them in, because there's going to be more cars on the road. And I've had defused so many situations where people were mad at me and saying, you're soliciting, you're all this. I'm like, no, I'm not soliciting. Do you have kids? I'm doing an open house. And instantly they're like, oh, thank you so much for letting us know. And then I can talk to them about everything I want to talk to them about the open house. Hey, if the open house goes really well, do you want me to let you know? And they're usually like, yeah, if you have a ton of people, you guys sell that tomorrow? I want to know. Hey, I'll give you a call. What's your number? And then I'll get their number and I'll let them know how the open house went. The other thing is circle prospecting. You can call around there instead of door knock if that's something that you prefer. You can get the numbers. All I have to do is say, hey, Kelsey, can I get a list of numbers? And she hands those to me, and I'm able to call and get that done. And so the big thing about being on a team is a lot of this stuff, getting the call lists, running the social media. The next bullet point on this one is social media. I'm able to go, hey, Kelsey, will you create an event? Hey, Kelsey, will you do this? And she does those things for me. And so I get to have free time by being part of a team. And if you're a solo agent, take these things and just create a quick social event. The cool thing is with video, like I'll go to the house, I'll shoot a Facebook Live on our team page, and it gets shown by a ton of people. So I'll show up 15, 20 minutes early to the open house, earlier to set up, and I'll do a quick video of the home. And we're able to put that, boost it, and post it, and make that part of the event so people can see it. Now let's talk about switch properties. So the biggest thing I like doing about switch properties, maybe you're new to the business and you don't know what a switch property is. What that is someone walks into the open house and they're like, this is nothing that I want. I don't want this type of house. You need to be ready for that. So what happens is you've got your computer up. You can either have hard copies. I know that some agents love to have a bunch of just planos of all the different homes in the neighborhood that's available. And they'll have those and put those out. What I like doing is I actually like having it on my computer. I like having the hard copies, but I like having it on my computer. And then I can literally say, what are you looking for? And they're like, well, I'm actually looking for a 2-story, and this is a single story. I almost didn't even walk in. And you're like, oh, fantastic. There's actually a 2-story around the corner, but let's make sure this 2-story works for you. I don't want to waste your time. And then they go, oh, you value my time? Oh, you already know the neighborhood? And so we run through all those switch properties that are there in the neighborhood. And they go, oh, I need a 2-story with a pool. Oh, there's one right here. Let's go. I have a sign that I put on the door. Hey, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And I throw those up and I'll run and show that person that property. And then they're like, hey, this is awesome. I love this house. I have sold homes off of doing that because they were so excited that I knew what was available. And that one wasn't having an open house. Now, remember, most people are looking for open houses online. They're doing that. So you need to make sure you have your social media going. You need to make sure that you're doing everything to make sure that open house is online. But there's still the people driving around to open houses, especially in the older communities. And I mean the retirement communities. So they literally look for the open house signs. They'll drive through and do that. So you've got to make sure you're signing right. You've got to make sure you've got everything in place. You're online so you can hit everybody. So let's talk about signs. I laugh when it's this picture because that's Mark in the picture holding up that sign. Mike and I are good buddies. So I'm Santan Terry. He's Maricopa Mark. And so we go back and forth. If he's got a lead that's really hard to find what they need and they're looking in Santan, he sends them to me. If I've got someone who's looking for a specific property in Maricopa, I send them to Mark because Mark is amazing and he's in Maricopa. And I don't know Maricopa as much as Mark does. And so if it's really important that they get what they want, I send it over. But so here's the interesting part. Signs, we have these huge yellow signs. We want to make sure that they're there. You're going to need to make sure you have rocks and sandbags and your hammers and stakes, however you like to attach them. At my house, I have a rock garden. My wife calls it my rock garden, but it's my open house rock garden. It's right before I go into the backyard, right next to where nobody sees, and I just have a stack of rocks on the side of my house, and it's real easy. I throw a box in my truck, throw that in, I'm ready to go. But here's the thing. If I grab my 15 signs and I grab all my rocks and I go to Queen Creek and I try to set up 15 signs, my signs will be gone. And they will be in the Queen Creek area, the Queen Creek City Council's area. Because if you have more than, I believe it's 7 signs, they take them. So know the city's ordinances for signs so they don't take them. Because almost all the other cities here where we are, they let us put up as many as we want. And you'll see by the next slide what I'm talking about. So, but here's the thing, when you're doing signs, if they see it at the turn and that's the only sign you have, they can't make a decision to come to the open house. So we usually place 4 of these before the first turn. So it's 100 yards, another one, 100 yards, another one. So for 400 yards, they get an opportunity to think, which means about 10 seconds. When you're driving a car at 45, 400 yards goes like that. And so you need to give them an opportunity to think about making the turn. Because if they see it right where the turn is, they're not going to have time to think or to turn. And how many of us turn around for anything? In all honesty, we don't. We're like, oh, maybe it'll be there tomorrow. And it's not. So make sure you give them a chance to think about turning into the open house. And then this is the digital part about it. Throw it on the MLS. When you put it on the MLS, it puts it on Zillow, it puts it on Redfin, it puts it on everything. So make sure you have in there, and if it's not your property, you reach out and ask them, will you schedule the open house in the MLS? Owner agents do it. I mean, if you get one of theirs, they want it everywhere. But if it's not an owner agent and it's someone you don't know, reach out to them and specifically ask them to put it on there and check up, remind them, make sure it's there, because then it goes everywhere. So this next slide, I was actually involved in this open house. 4 of us set up the signs. Before I go there, I've got to prep you. So this open house was so busy. And one of the questions I love asking is, how did you find out about the open house? So look at these signs. So the X with the red circle is where the property was, And Merrill put this together of where all the signs were. I have 20 open houses signs at mine. Merrill, I got assignment 1 through 15. Merrill took the other ones. And so it's literally, I put out a ton of signs, Merrill put out a ton of signs, and I forget who else was there. And we put out a couple signs. We were slammed. My favorite question to ask people when they first walk in, I like to ask them for help. And I ask them, hey, how'd you find out about the open house? We're reviewing all of our marketing techniques. What works best? How did you find out about it? That one, it was, oh, I saw the sign. 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 A lot of other ones, oh, I first saw it on Zillow. Oh, I saw it here. I saw it here. No, this one was packed with people that said, I saw the signs. I saw the sign. But anyways, there's so much stuff about putting out your signs. Team up with someone, because this is a little daunting. There was 30 signs to set up. That would take 45 minutes to do it by yourself. And nobody wants to do that. You get 3 agents at the open house and you're getting 10 times more people. You can't handle that many people. Team up with someone. Get an accountability partner. And so that nothing gets canceled. With an accountability partner, you can take turns. Oh, let's go door knocking. You take that side of the street. I'll take this side of the street. Everything becomes shorter and everything's going to happen because you have that partner. All right. So now, during the open house, go into the house, set up the things that you're going to do, figure out where you're going to be, set up the table, get everything set up. So when I do an open house, I go to the house first, because the worst thing in the world to do is to start setting up the house and people are walking in. You look so unprofessional. So I go to the house first. I get the whole house set up. All the lights are on. You get to smell the house and you're like, oh man, no, this ain't working. And you put in your air freshener, you do whatever that needs to be done to have that house ready. But figure out, how am I going to greet people? What's the layout of the house? Do I need the table here? Because the worst thing to do is to be sitting in front of the front door. At the second they open the door, they see you. That's the worst thing, because you want to be off to the side. They get to open the door. They get to look at the house. And then you're there and you're like, hey, come on in. Come check out the house. They come in. You ask them your marketing question. And then you start the process of visiting with them and doing those things. You don't want to be in their face and just shock them and get them back. But then there's so many different sign-in options. Every title company has an open house iPad app. Every title company does. And so you can get an app for your iPad and you say, hey, the seller asked me to have everyone sign in. Bull crap. They didn't ask you to do that. But everybody uses that line. And so you can use an iPad. You can have a sheet there of sign-in information of what they put in. And I sometimes have them sign in when we have a huge team activity. We have a QR code. They get to scan it and it goes automatically into the CRM. I'll talk to you real quick about that. If your clients don't go into the CRM right away, so like I fill this out while I talk to them, in between people coming in, they're going into my CRM. Because I'm sorry, if I procrastinate this till after, guess what doesn't happen? Guess what didn't happen the next day? Guess what didn't happen the next day? Guess what didn't happen the next day? And then it's a wadded up mess underneath my computer in my computer bag. So work and just take it right away, put them in your CRM, because the training that we had last week, if we can get them into the CRM, we're going to remember to call them. We're going to remember to do those things. But here's the thing, put something on here that makes you remember them. Like we'll talk about, as we go through the open house, put something, the stupidest little detail on what they said in there. Whether it's, oh, my dog is a Great Dane. If you write that on there the next day, when you see this paper again, or you have it in your CRM, oh yeah, that's the dude that had this Great Dane. And you remember those things. And here's the thing, when you call them and you talk to them about that little detail, they're gonna be like, this guy remembers me, and it's gonna change everything. There's scripts there's a ton of scripts for open houses. They're all on the website. But the biggest thing is to be authentic to you. Memorize those scripts, go over them, but you need to be authentic. So as they come in and you're talking to them, involve your own life. I joke with people a lot of times. They'll say, yeah, we need 4 bedrooms. We have 5 kids. I was like, hey, we're tied. I got 5 kids too. And then they laugh. Or it's, You have 2 kids. I won. I've got 5. And as you do those things within your scripts, it makes you feel more personable. It makes you feel like you care. So during the open house, take time. Find the best way to get their information for you. If it's, hey, sign in, do that. If it's, hey, let's walk around the house and figure out what's going on here. If this works for you, whatever works for you, getting their information, find out the best way for you because it's going to be different. It's always going to be different. And it's different for the people walking in. A lot of people, my wife, if she came into an open house and you asked her for her information, she's leaving. She's done. She's not going to give it to you. My wife won't give nothing out. You ask for her phone number and she's like, no. And so, but if you talk to my wife and walk through the house and you visit with her and you become someone she trusts, she's going to give you everything. But me, on the other hand, I don't care. I'll walk in, I'll give you my phone number. If you start spamming me, I'll mark you as spam, but I'll give you my number. So here's the big thing. You got to figure out the differences in people and the best way to get their information and the way that you feel most comfortable. Because remember in the beginning, consistency always beats out perfection that's inconsistent. So figure out what works for you and start doing it and do it over and over and over again. So during this open house that you're doing, you get everything set up, you get everything going. You might only have one guest. You might have 10, you might have 30, you might have 40. But here's the thing, it only takes one. That open house that I did with Merrill, that was the third of that month that we did in a row. We did an open house every day except Sundays. That third day on that Wednesday, I had a lady come in. Nobody was there when Merrill was there. I had a lady who came in who was looking for a horse property. It was a horse property. We talked about it. She talked about the different stalls, different things. I followed up with her for about a year. Her husband passed away and she didn't end up coming to Arizona. She stayed where she was. The second person who walked in was just something who was around the corner neighbor who looked at it. The third person who walked in let me know. Market was a little bit different then. He said, I've been watching this property for 6 months. It's been listed by 2 different agents. And I've been wanting to stop by, but I haven't seen an open house. This is the first time I saw an open house. And I was like, hey, what would you like to offer on this property? And he said, I don't know. It's listed for way higher than I think. I said, hey, let's look at the comps. He came and sat down next to me. I had 2 chairs there. Luckily, Merrill vacated. We had 2 chairs there, and we started running comps. They had listed the home with the properties across the way that had irrigation. This property didn't have irrigation, so it wasn't worth what they were wanting for it. So we circled the area. We went over everything, and I said, "Hey, I really think they had it listed for 500,000, which was a more than it is now. They had it listed for 500,000. I said, "Hey, let's offer 412," and he said, "You'll write that?" "Yeah, I'll write that. Why won't we write that?" And so we went through, we wrote the offer right there. He was with me. He signed, got everything signed digitally with me right there. I emailed it to him. He used his phone. We sent the offer off. And the agent called me back and was like, "Are you serious? This is what you're offering? Across the street?" I said, "Yeah, but that has irrigation. This doesn't have irrigation. You might want to talk." And it took about a week of negotiations, but because the house, I've got to explain this house. I mean, it was like built in the 80s. It still had all the gold, everything. It looked like it hadn't been painted since the 80s. And I explained to him, look, your house needs tons of updating. And we listed everything. The seller finally agreed to a $50,000 from where they were down, and they were giving us $20,000 in concessions. It was absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, we can't do that in this market. But because I took the time with that gentleman, he bought that home and he's considered buying another home. I visited with him recently and we're good friends and we talk back and forth. He owns a landscaping company. He only does the big stuff for the HOAs and all this stuff. And this property worked perfect for him. And so, but guess what? I only set out 2 signs that time. We were really, really fast in getting prepared and we threw the 2 signs out. It was right in front of the house and 2 more in front of another place. So we didn't do the 20 signs. But we were consistent. It was day 3. We did an open house the next day and the next day. I ended up selling 2 homes that month from the open houses that we did. Just like that other gentleman who only did open houses. Be ready when you're doing your open houses. Have your switch properties ready. Have those things ready. So when people are there during this open house, you know what's going on. Because I had already looked at the properties across the street and knew it was way overpriced. I'd already looked at the comps that were there. When you're ready, you get to engage with these people. You're ready. So be consistent, be informed, know the information, get ready to get their information, and be ready to write an offer. Okay, so post open house. This is the coolest thing. So nobody follows up. Most agents don't follow up at all. They've got the information. They're not even going to call. So I had a gentleman recently who I met in an open house. I've called him 3 or 4 times. He hadn't picked up. On the 4th time I call him, and I'm like, "Hey, Bob," and he's like, "Terry, I've been to a bazillion open houses. You're the only guy who calls back." Guess who we bought a house with? Yep, me. So that's the situation. Post open house, follow up. And if you're taking your notes, you're going to know, oh, they're only in town for today. They're from out of town. They're moving here in September. You probably don't need to call them the next day. You can give them a call when you know they're getting back. Hey, how was the flight home? Everything go okay? And you can talk those things through. But you write down what you find out about these people. Because when you bring up the littlest things, like, how's the kids doing? You've got 5 kids. When we had that conversation in the beginning of they won or I won or whatever, you can bring up those kids. You can bring up the different things. So it's so important that you do the follow-up, and you don't have to be perfect in the follow-up. When you're calling, I remember one time I called someone for a year, once a month for about a year. They called me back and said, "Hey, thank you so much for all your hard work. Can we send you a check for $250? This is the first time I talked to them in a year. Now, obviously, my CRM's sending them emails, sending them properties and all this stuff. And they were like, "You have done so much work for us. It's keeping us updated on the market. All these things, we'd like to send you a check." And I was like, I told them, "No, thank you. When you buy a house, that'll be enough." And we had a great conversation with them. But I had followed up for a year. I hadn't even talked to them in a year. But they remembered who I was. My CRM was sending them emails of properties of what they liked. And the only time I talked to them about what they liked was at the open house. And they enjoyed those properties, being able to see those when they became available. I knew they weren't moving for about a year. And so I was sending once a week, not every day. So get that information. That's the important part. Now, post open house door knocking. I love doing this too. If that house says, "I want you to get back to me," here's the thing, get back to them. Because if you don't, they're going to be like, "Oh, it's another agent that doesn't do what they say." But if you said you're going to tell them what the property, how many people you had there, what was the activity level, how many buyers, these people might be looking for an agent. Here's the biggest thing about open houses. Why do we do open houses? We want to get there before they call Realtor.com, before they call Zillow, before they do these things, before they become an online lead. We want to grab them. Why? Because we make more money. And so that's what open houses are all about. Finding leads outside of the online resources where we have to pay a referral fee. Because here's the thing. Zillow leads are awesome. They're fantastic. I've had a Zillow lead that I got a Zillow lead. We paid the 33% that we have to do. That gal sold that home a year later. Her new boyfriend, I sold his home. They bought a home together. 4 transactions in a little bit over a year. And so, but would it have been awesome if I would have found her through an open house? Wouldn't it have been awesome if we do that? As we're door knocking around the open house, or rather, if you're calling, if you're doing things, treat those leads well. Start calling them, doing the things that you need to do to follow up so that they fall into your pocket, and treat them as friends. Do those things. Let the neighbors know how much interest you had. We're almost done. I went through this material pretty quick. Hopefully you guys have caught something out of it. The cool thing about this quote, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. if you don't find an excuse. So me, I call it the monkey on your back. You're going to say, hey, I'm going to do an open house. Monkey on your back. Inside your brain, you're saying, oh, open houses don't work. Everything's going to come to your mind. All these agents say, but guess what? Those agents who say that open houses don't work, they're not selling a lot of homes. Those agents who say circle prospecting don't work, sorry, they're not selling a lot of homes. Because the agents who are selling a lot of homes are like, hey, circle prospect. Hey, there's this really cool app called US Mailers or mailers.com. You can go on there, you can circle a neighborhood, and you can literally pick it. So if you have a client who says, hey, I need a 4-bedroom home with a pool and all this kind of stuff, you can go to mailers.com and you can say 4-bedroom homes. Got to have a pool. They have to have owned property for 5 years. And you can look at every single property in a neighborhood that's that. And you can go door knock every single one of them and say, hey, I've got a buyer. Or you can mail to them. And so there's so many things you can do. People who share their excuses out loud, guess what? That's their monkey on the back sharing those excuses. They don't sell a lot of homes. The people who sell a lot of homes are circle prospecting. They're open housing. They're on Zillow. They have multiple pipelines bringing leads in. So make sure that you're doing these things so that you have open house leads coming in. You have Zillow leads coming in. You have online leads coming in. You have circle prospecting. You have expired and canceled. Find your pillars of finding and finding your contacts. Because if you find these different ways of finding these contacts, you'll have people coming in all the time and business happening. The consistency. So here's the big thing. Be resilient, become unstoppable. Don't listen to the monkey on your back. Open houses work. And keep watching The Resilient Realtor. Everything I've watched, all these trainings that I've looked at, I've taken a piece of it and put in my personal business and working the system. So I'm Terry Cottle from the Big Helper Group. Have a great day. Kelsey, how do you turn it off? I don't even know.
And bye-bye.